There, it is so good to see you. Let's just do a quick tech check. Someone drop a comment, anyone, all of you, drop a comment in the chat box and let me know if we've got good audio and good visual. Give me a thumbs up or a wave or whatever it takes to let me know that we're good. Maria says we're good. Yay! Maria, it's good to see you. We haven't seen you in such a long time. I hope you've been well. And Dee, so good to see you too. And Lori says it's good. Happy holidays. Happy Merry Christmas back to you, Lori. I like to say Merry Christmas instead, and that's just my way of doing things. All right, we'll do more greetings at the end. So good to have you with me. You know, we're at that time of year where everybody's super busy. So I really appreciate you taking time out to be with me today, especially at this unusual time. We don't usually do them this early, but like you, I've got Christmas plans with some of my family tonight. So I'm going to be off partying with my daughter and her husband, one of my daughters and her husband, and some of our grandkids. So we're looking forward to having fun. Let's dive right into our topic this evening. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions about iridology that are being perpetrated by people who have been trained in archaic and disproven methods. Now, that's a pretty harsh statement, but it's absolutely true. And unfortunately, when people are using outdated information that is incorrect, it gives every iridologist a bad name, right? Because then we look like charlatans and snake oil salesmen and things like that. We don't want to look like that. Iridologists who are up to date practice constitutional iridology, and that is where research is still being done. It is ongoing. So I want you to remember that with these little mini classes, if you've got a question or comment, drop it in the chat box. If I can work it into what we're doing tonight, I absolutely will. All right, so my name is Judith Cobb, and I think I'm going to introduce myself more in a little bit, so I'm not going to belabor that point right now. This URL that you see on the screen may be important for you if, as we are working, I'm going to put it in the chat box too, there we go. If, as we are working, you're thinking, yes, I want to know more about this style of iridology. I want to know what it takes to learn it. I want to know what it takes to incorporate it into my practice. All righty. So how many of you have heard the owl story? I'm going to touch on this, then we're going to throw it away. Have you heard the owl story when it comes to iridology? The little boy named Ignaz von Petschle in Hungary in the early 1800s found or trapped an owl. We think it might have been an owl. The bird was injured, wing, leg, something was broken. So this little boy took this bird of prey home to nurse it back to health. And in this, what he says he saw was he says he saw a black line in the iris when he first captured this bird. And then as he worked with the bird and helped the bird to heal and recover, that line went away. We know that story is absolutely false. How do we know it's false? We know it's false because all of the wild bird sanctuaries, all the veterinarians out there who actually work with injured birds have never been able to replicate this. So we know it's false. We also know it's false because the iris of an owl has a very different structure from the iris of a human. So even if it was accurate for the owl, we can't extrapolate it across to humans. It's not like that, okay? So we need to take that story, if you've heard it, and you need to throw it away. It is mythology, it is hearsay, it is not accurate. All right, let's get into some cases that we can actually look at. True confessions of the painful kind. This is my eye from March 2017. Now I periodically buy a new camera, get a new illuminator, so I like to play with it. So I have lots of photos of my eyes. So this one is from March 17th, 2017. And I want you to really pay attention to what you're seeing right in this area. Everything was healthy and strong when I took this photo. And then couple years later, almost exactly 2 years later, I slipped on some ice and I broke my wrist in 2 places. My wrist does not normally look like that. It doesn't look like that anymore. Been repaired and it's healed well, right? And And with this is while I was waiting in the hospital, just trying to not move it until they could get to me and tell me what needed to be done. All right. So this is one angle of the x-ray. I hope this doesn't make anyone squeamish. Definitely broken, right? And I'm going to tell you, I am ever so grateful in this case for the heavy medications they've got for this kind of stuff, because they did knock me out for about 20 minutes, and they tried to do the external reduction, and it did not work. This is actually through the cast. You can see the cast here. All of their efforts, it did not work. And here again, we can see the break here. And there's one more break, and I don't even know where it is, but I've got 2 incisions on my wrist because they had to operate, do a double incision, one down the side of my arm and one down the underside of my arm, to put in 2 metal plates to hold the bones in place so they could heal. This was after the double internal stabilization because they had to do the open reduction on it. Oh, my fingers were little sausages. That's me trying to keep some yogurt down those few days after a general anesthetic. Oh my goodness, they are so rough, so rough. Not fun, not fun. But we made it through. We survived. Yes, we did. And so on March 19th, 2 days after the surgery, the bone had not healed yet. I had the presence of mind to say, take photos of your eyes, right? Okay, get a life, right? You'll notice there's no black line. We had 2 bone breaks in the wrist. This is according to the Ellen Tart-Jensen map, where the arm would show up in the left iris. It was left arm, so it would show up in the left iris. There should have been, if I was an owl, I guess, maybe there would have been, I don't know. There should have been a big black line in here from the double break. You would think that with a double break and with a double surgery, there would be something there, but there's nothing. There's nothing that suggests that I broke my wrist. Here it is, 2 weeks later, going to get the surgical cast off and get the real cast put on. You know, they take the surgical cast off, they make sure everything's healing well, they do x-rays to make sure the bones have stayed aligned and that it's all good. And there we are with hardware. You know what's really kind of funny? My father broke his left wrist, and he also had plates in his wrist. I don't know, like father, like daughter, I guess, I don't know. There we go. You can see it from another angle. Cast changing day. You can see all the cast on here, that gridded pattern. My skin does not look like that. This is what my arm itself looked like. That was one of the incisions healing very nicely, dried up blood left over from the surgery. And this is the side of my arm, where down this side where I've got, you know, it's healed so well, I almost don't even know it's there. It's healed up beautifully, which is great, which I think is a huge testament to nutrition and diet as well, right? That it's healed so beautifully. Well, just to test things, anyone got any questions so far before we do this next part? We're also going to look at some other surgeries in just a few minutes. Anyone got any questions so far? Because 10 weeks later, at my son's house on Mother's Day, there was something they wanted to give me, so we went over and it was lovely until it wasn't. I was wearing high heels. My heel caught on a stair going down the stairs, and I fell. I didn't fall far, but I fell hard. It was like just 2 stairs, landed on a landing, and broke the olecranon in my elbow. So we'll get to that more in just a moment. So April 2019, so we're still looking at, is there anything showing up? Anything at all? Looking at oldest to newest. And it's all just the same. Just the same. The break did not show up in my eye whatsoever. So here I am, like I said, 10 weeks later. They do not give frequent flyer points in the ER, and neither do the orthopedic surgeons give frequent flyer points. Just saying. So here we are, snapped my elbow like this. It was funny because I like to find humor in things. As I'm prepped for surgery, in the waiting area, you know, laying on the bed, in the waiting area, waiting to be wheeled into the OR, the surgeon comes out. And so I had one surgeon for the first when I broke my wrist, and I had a different surgeon for the second one for the elbow. And the surgeon comes out and he says his name. And I said, I think you know my father. And he said, who's your father? And I told him my father's name. He said, oh, yes, knee replacement, hip, and wrist. He could recite all the surgeries that he'd done on my dad. And my dad was kind of bionic eventually. And so the problem with breaking your olecranon off like this, you're not supposed to have a gap like that, is that you have to have surgery. There is no way for this to heal without. And if you don't have surgery to hold these bone pieces together, you'll never have use of your arm again, right? Because you've got parts that anchor in and parts that are supposed to anchor in that aren't doing it properly. So here I'm in the hospital again. My elbow doesn't normally look that kind of protrudy. Here I am again after the surgery, being stoic and brave. That's the surgical cast. And I remembered to get photos of my eyes. It was a little while later, but I remembered. Now, you would think that after breaking 2 wrist bones and an elbow within 10 weeks of each other, that something would show up. Wouldn't you? I thought something would show up, but it looks just exactly the same. No difference. Okay, so this is really kind of frustrating that, it's not showing up. Mind you, I'm going to say it's not really frustrating for me because I walked away from that other style of iridology 35 years ago. I did that other style for 10 years. I had proven that it doesn't work, that it's just a bunch of good guesses if you're lucky. And that was when I was blessed to learn constitutional iridology. Now, this is, again, because we were working on the elbow, they also wanted to make sure I hadn't messed up anything in my wrist again. So they checked that. This is what my elbow looks like now. I have different pieces of hardware and their wire holding things together. And it seems to be working fine. I understand I can get this removed if I want to, but why go through another surgery if I don't have to? They say it's easier to take it out than it was to put it in. But yeah, originally I was going to get it all out and ask them if they could take out the wrist hardware as well. And I've gotten used to it. So whatever, I'm not going to worry about it now. So again, looking at my eye a few months later, is there any delayed reaction showing it's anything in there? And there's not. And there's not. So now my arm is totally healed up. I had an amazing physiotherapist who was absolutely brilliant. And, when he saw the wrist, he said, okay, we've got work to do. When I showed up with the elbow, I don't know whether he was going to laugh or cry. It was just so much. And he said, most people don't get even 70% of their use of their arm back when they've had as many serious injuries as you have. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm going to make a liar out of you. I am, because I always do. You always tell me this is going to take surgery or this is going to take blah, blah, blah. And I always make a liar out of you. I'm doing that this time. And so we've done that this time. We've got probably 98% extension, which is better than some people who haven't broken their arms. And I've got pretty good flexion and extension on my wrist as well. Probably not 100%, but pretty darn good and strong. Good and strong. Okay. Now that you've met my arm, let's move on. This is one of my students. She said this about taking the dynamic iridology course. She said this. She's a reflexologist and a naturopath in Quebec. I completed my first iridology course several years ago. Since that time, I was looking for a teacher who could take me deeper into my knowledge and who would be available to his students and happy to be so, with whom it would be easy to exchange ideas, to feel comfortable asking questions, who would not fear different points of view, and who would be ready to take up the challenge of explaining their own. In short, the rare pearl. During these years, I took several mini classes with several teachers, but I could never decide to take a full course with any of them. There was always that little something missing that made me feel like I was in the right place with the right person. The moment I started talking with Judith, I immediately felt comfortable with her, even though I had no contact with her before. Her welcome, her openness, and her professionalism made me feel that she was the teacher I'd been looking for all this time. All the fears I previously felt about other teachers vanished immediately. I felt no hesitation in getting involved with her. I have never regretted my choice, and my expectations were met far beyond what I expected from a teacher. She knows how to transmit to us the taste for excellence, and above all, she knows how to support us and train us to become the truly competent iridologists. I love that. That is so brilliant. That's what we're aiming for here, folks. That is what we're aiming for. So my name is Judith Cobb. You already know that. I am one of only 10 level 3 certified iridology instructors through the International Iridology Practitioners Association. They just started issuing badges a few years ago. I've been a certified iridologist with IPA since about 1991. And just, you know, I love iridology. I love teaching. I love teaching iridology. It just works together so beautifully. And my goal is to not just teach iridology, but to take the students who study with me and to give them the best training I can that will enable them to become better iridologists than I ever could be. How does that sound? I want to give my students the training they need to surpass me, which nothing would make me happier. Nothing would make me happier. Oops, we skipped one. There we go. I'm also a master herbalist and a nutrition professional. These are the professional organizations I'm affiliated with. And so with this, I like to integrate some nutrition and some herbology into my teaching, and I like to get my students to integrate what they know in with the iridology as well, because iridology is not a standalone thing at all. Now, let's look at some other iris signs and some sclera signs that could teach us about trauma. We're going to look at some surgeries, and we're going to see that things don't always work out the way we think they should. This right here is called a trauma fork. It is an indication that this person has had some kind of an impact. In this case, it is in a head region. And this was a young woman. She's probably 26 now. She's the same age as one of my children. And when she was in her grade 12 year of high school, one of her classmates thought it would be really funny to hit her on the head with a very thick book. And he hit her right on, it was actually right on the front corner of her head. Gave her a 3rd-degree concussion to the point where she nearly lost her grade 12 year. She spent about 3 weeks flat on her back in a darkened room. And then after that, she had problems putting 2 thoughts together. She couldn't read her textbooks. She couldn't do her homework. She had to have people read things to her and read them 3 and 4 times for it to settle in so she could work with it. She eventually did recover enough of her faculties to finish out her grade 12 year, and she passed with grades good enough that she was able to go to, I believe she went to a fashion institute out east. And so that is what a trauma fork looks like. Now, this could soften with time. Her mother was very astute, got her into the concussion clinic here in Calgary, where they do nothing but concussion work. And so she was getting the best medical care possible. So this can soften because of the intensity of the impact that she had. It will probably never completely go away. All right, so this is a trauma fork. We can see a trauma fork in relation to physical traumas, like an impact accident. We can also sometimes see them in relation to chemical or toxic exposure kinds of things as well. Here is another trauma fork. Now, this isn't just a blood vessel that is split into 2. You're going to notice that one side of the blood vessel is fairly smooth. The other side is a little more jig-jaggy. Okay, so this is a trauma fork. We've got the back leg pointing straight in to show us where the impact was using our iridology maps. And then the width of the arms tells us how wide the impact was. How close this comes to the iris tells us how significant the impact was. So lots of information here teaching us about trauma, forks, and impact in the body. This is one of my son's eyes. At the age of, he would have been about 20, think of how old he is now. He had been about 23 or 24. He was diagnosed with an abdominal hernia. Now, the medical system here in Canada is socialized, which means if you are critically ill, you get really good care really quickly. Usually, like my broken arm, the wrist surgery was that night. Broken elbow, I did have to wait a day because, you know, we didn't get the accident happened later on in the day. And so I had to wait till the next day for surgery, but that's not bad, right? A hernia is not usually it's not usually a critical thing if it hasn't strangulated. So he was working for a big box renovation store, I think it was Rona, which is the Canadian, kind of like a Canadian version of Home Depot. And he was in the appliance department, which is not a good place for someone with a hernia to be working. So he had a hernia belt, but this was not going well. So his doctor said, yeah, we can get surgery for you because it's not urgent. If you want to wait here in Calgary, it'll be 18 months till you see a surgeon, and then probably another 9 months till you have surgery. Well, 2.5 years nearly, my goodness. I did some research online, found a doctor who was very highly rated in a little town about 2 hours away. It said that she could get them done within 3 weeks. So my son got his doctor to give a referral to the doctor that was out of town. My son phoned that doctor and drove to that little town, had the exam. The doctor said, absolutely, we can get this done for you. Can you be at the hospital on this day at this time? And make sure it'll be a day surgery. So make sure you have a hotel reservation and someone who will stay with you in town that night. He had the surgery literally 3 weeks later, right? So let's look at it. Looking at the abdominal wall, we're looking for anything in his eye that is a black line radiating outwards, and abdominal wall, my goodness, where are we going to be for that? Looking at peritoneum kind of stuff. Oh, we might see something in here. We might see something in here. There's nothing. And then after the surgery, now notice his pupil's a little larger. Notice it's also a different camera, different lighting. That's going to change the pupil size, right? So that's not going to have an impact because this wasn't done like while he was still stoned on pain meds, right? So we're looking for anything abdominal wall. There's nothing. So he had the hernia, which should have showed up because it's tissue that is not doing what it's supposed to. And the surgery, which of course would have been an injury to his skin and those surface layers, nothing showed up in the skin, which would have been in this very outer edge. And we still don't see the line. And I believe he had mesh put in. Yep, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay. Now, are any of you feeling a little disappointed that we don't see changes in the irides because of bone breaks or surgeries so far? Are you? You know, so many people want to see those kinds of things. And all I can say is, yeah, it doesn't happen. So I just want to know, are any of you feeling disappointed that you're not seeing those kinds of markings in the eyes that say somebody broke a bone, or that say, Jamie says a little, yeah, right? Be honest here, right? We've been taught by that old school iridology that the eyes show us everything that is happening right now, and that's not quite true. The irides themselves show us the genetic potentials. This shows us where our strengths and weaknesses are. They don't show us where we've had traumas. A broken arm doesn't change my genetic structure. A hernia repair doesn't change my genetic structure. Okay. So this is a fellow who was 38 years of age when he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. A few years prior to that, we have his eye photos. And from where he had the cancer, it was literally in the descending colon and into the rectal area. We would have expected to see something. We've got a little bit of this speckling, which could suggest an increased risk of cancer. He had surgery to remove the cancer. He did not end up with an ostomy, which he was very pleased with. But again, major surgery, right? To open the abdomen, take a chunk of the bowel out, and then reconnect it to his anus, to that lower part of the rectum and the anus. You would expect to see something down here. A little bit. Now, actually, sorry, this is still prior. So 3 years prior, 2 years prior. Let's go to the surgery. Here we go. This is 6 weeks post-surgery. Same day, different, same camera, different lighting. So things look a little bit different from one to the other. But we're still not seeing anything here that was different from what we saw back here to say surgery happened. We cannot look at this and say, oh, I see you have had surgery. Okay, it doesn't show up here. This is why we ask questions, right? A holistic approach means that we are engaged with our client. We ask questions. We want to understand who they are, how they are, where they've been, what they've done. I need to know surgeries. I need to know medications. I need to know past histories. And then I need to know, what do they want help with right now? And what they want help with right now is going to help me as I look at their eyes to understand more fully what I'm seeing. All right. So that can be a little bit, like I said, disappointing that we don't have, that we can't make that owl story manifest in a human being. We can't even make it manifest in an owl, right? So there we go. There we go. So little introduction here then to the dynamic iridology assessment system. This is the only online fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths, NDs, RNs, PTs, EMTs, anyone who's got a college level anatomy and physiology course already completed with a grade of over 80% or a B or better. And why do we want to do this? We want to do this because way too many holistic professionals see their client, gather information, and then go off and spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours of their own time creating a protocol and a fancy report for the client. And, you know, when they do that, it overwhelms their clients. It gives their clients way more information than they can handle right here, right now. And we want instead to be creating programs that our clients can stick to, that they can comply with and get results with, because they're only going to get results if they do the homework, right? And if the homework is too much, too hard, they're probably not going to do it. I've seen so many people run into problems that way. Too much, too hard, nope, can't do it, right? And so we want long-term retention. I've got clients that have been with me for 45 years now. They were some of my first. They stuck with me through my early days when I was still learning things, and they're still with me now, which is brilliant. That doesn't mean I'm seeing them every week. It means they come in as they need to, right? So that's what we're looking for with good training here, right? We really want to retain our clients' boobs. So the goal is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently, so that you can easily integrate what you already know about nutrition and herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions. The goal is to be able to gather the information you need from your client for this session, do an iris assessment, see what you need to in those irides for right now for this session, create a program right now, and deliver it to your client right now, so that they've got it all in one stop. And that's not a program that's going to take them forever and ever. It's a program that is going to allow you to build their process, if you will, step by step, right? So you pick your battles, if you will, pick the things that they need to change in their diet, 2 or 3 key precise things they need to change in their diet that they can work on over the next month. Then when you see them again, build on that with a couple more changes. When you see them again, build on that with a couple more changes. So you're helping them to craft a wellness lifestyle. Again, using nutrition, if you've got that training, using herbology, if you've got that training, whatever your background is. Too many iridology teachers do not teach their students how to integrate iridology with other modalities. They teach iridology as a standalone. And I'm going to tell you, I think that's wrong. I think that's very wrong. It's kind of like giving someone a tool. Well, it is exactly giving someone a tool and not teaching them how to use it. It's like taking your car to the car repair shop and the guy there says, yep, I know exactly what's wrong, but I don't know how to fix it. You're gonna have to talk to Bob down the street. He fixes cars. I only diagnose cars. I only tell you what's wrong with your car, right? And if you only learn iridology and you don't know how to integrate it, you only know what's wrong, right? You don't know how to fix it. So I like to help my students learn how to integrate it so they can actually help their clients get fixed, right? All right, any questions? It's been a bit of a quiet group here. Any questions or comments? So if you are interested, while anyone's typing anything in here, if you are interested in learning more about the dynamic iridology course, I invite you to use that link that I posted in the web chat and schedule a time to speak with me. If you've got anatomy and physiology already under your belt and you're looking for an iridology course, then I strongly encourage you to have a conversation with me. Jamie's saying, so we can integrate what has worked for us into the practice. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you've experienced a certain nutrition training that has been very beneficial and you've seen it work for lots of other people, then you integrate that with iridology. Iridology shows you where the weak links are. Because you understand the anatomy and physiology, you understand then what those markers in the eye mean, especially when you bump that up against the client's symptoms. And then from there, you draw on your nutrition training or your herb training or meditation training or aromatherapy or flower essences or whatever it is you do, you integrate that. In the scope of the course, we do a lot of practicing together. And in the scope of that practice, Jamie, I would ask you, I'd say, when we look at this eye, what markings do you see? What is our constitution? If the person came in with these symptoms, which of those markings are important for those symptoms? All right, great. Now, what are questions you would need to ask this client in order to really get to the heart of the matter based on what you see in their eyes and what you see with their symptoms? And then what would you recommend from your experience? What would you recommend? What would be the first 2 or 3 things you would recommend? And I give you some bits to work with in the course. I don't teach you nutrition, but we do talk about nutrition. There's a bit of nutrition in the course. I don't teach the herbology in the course, but we talk about herbs that can be useful in certain situations, right? And if you've got other skills and tools, I want to hear about that. I've had lots of aromatherapists through the course. I've had physical therapists through the course. I've got lots of herbalists and nutritionists, of course, naturopaths they've got a lot of different background. I've had Bowen therapists through the course, right? So whatever you have in your toolkit already, the goal is to teach you how to integrate that with iridology, right? And that will always be the goal. Regardless of what your modalities are, I want to try to help you integrate that with iridology and then expand your repertoire of maybe some other things that you could learn at some point in time to incorporate with it. How does that sound, Jamie? It sounds great. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Sophia Bresvillar, one of my graduates, one of my certified grads, said this: the commitment that Judith has for teaching is extraordinary, and the amount of support you get from the iridology course is fabulous. The material is very clear and thorough. The pace of the course is dynamic, but with enough time to integrate all the parts. As this was my second iridology course, I was not sure if this course would just be an add-on, but it has exceeded my expectations. I've learned lots from the course material and classes, expanded previous knowledge, and gained more confidence. I can see now how this course has helped me to get better answers from my clients and design an effective protocol in very little time. Highly recommended for beginners and advanced. So the only way you get to enroll in this course is if we have a one-on-one meeting. And that is exactly what that link is for that I've pasted in the chat box. I'm going to put it there again for you. Is we need to have a one-on-one meeting, and that's for us to make sure you've got the anatomy and physiology, and it's for us to make sure we like each other well enough to work together, because the course is 20 weeks long, right? And it's there to make sure that the course is really a good fit, to make sure this is the right thing for you to be doing at this point in time, so that you have the best chance of success. So if you are looking for an anatomy, or not an anatomy, hopefully you've got the anatomy already done, right? If you're looking for an iridology course and you're looking for something that starts in the new year, then it would be amazing to have a chat with you. Martha says, Judith's class definitely exceed expectations. Thank you, Martha. I love it when students say nice things about me. Because that is the goal, is for me to exceed your expectations, right? To teach you not just the basics, the nuts and bolts of iridology, but the practical application. Any questions about anything we've talked about today? Like I said, some of you have been kind of quiet. Do you teach the second and third levels as well? Jamie, that is a really good question. You've done your research. IPA has 3 levels. You need level 1 and level 2 to sit for the certification exam. The dynamic iridology assessment system is level 1 and level 2 combined, right? And so, yes, I teach that. And yes, I'm certified to teach level 3, and I do teach level 3 as well. Yep, so I do teach all of it. Yeah. And I specifically do not teach level 1 and level 2 as separate courses, because they are not standalone courses. If you take level 1, you've got kind of bits and pieces in a patchwork. And then you have to have level 2 to make level 1 make sense. I also, because I was actually going to be a school teacher at an earlier time in my life, and I nearly graduated from university with that. But as I've looked at the curriculum of level 1 and level 2, the order that it was recommended that it be taught in did not make sense. And so I have reordered things. So some of level 2 is pulled forward, some of level 1 is pushed backward, so that it's in an order that makes sense to build sequentially and logically, rather than in a shotgun pattern. So Jamie, yes, I do teach levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 and 2 are combined in the dynamic iridology program. Okay, fantastic. Good question. I like it when people come to me having done research. This is good. All right. Anything else? Are we good? So grab that link, make an appointment to chat with me if you are thinking that you could be getting close to being ready to hop into a course, and we'll have a conversation and see where it takes us. Thank you so much for making time to be with me today. I truly appreciate it. And I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, just filled with love and joy and all the beautiful, wonderful things that you could ever dream of. There will be another mini class next week. So watch your email. And for those of you who are in the Facebook group, watch the Facebook group as well for that note. Now, if you're waiting for the replay, you want to see the replay after we're done, sometimes they go to your spam, junk, or promo folders. So if you think you didn't get it, check there. All righty. And thank you for the beautiful wishes, Jamie. I really appreciate that. And you did find the replays. They were in your junk, spam, and promo folders, weren't they? That's where they often hide. So drag my stuff into your main inbox so that it's more likely that you will see things in your inbox. Again, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. Remember, when you watch the replay, to like it, to share it, to drop a comment, to subscribe to my channel. It's all good. And we will hopefully see you next week. Take good care and Merry Christmas. Bye for now.